This is our practice test for Unit 3, which is Chapter 4A, so it's the first half of Chapter 4 in the book. And of course you can use a calculator for the entire test to the nearest thousandth. Again, I want to remember that that's 3 decimals. What is the sine of 65 degrees? Make sure your calculator is in radians when you type this in. So if you need to, you would want to switch the mode on your calculator to degrees if it happens to be in radians. So I want to double check. Looks like it's in radians because up at the top it says radians. And yes, it is in radians, and I need it to be in degrees, so I'm going to arrow down and arrow over to where it says degrees, and I'm going to hit enter. And now my calculator's in degrees. So now I can type in sine of 65, and that will do 65 degrees. And the 3 decimal places, that's 0.906. 0.906. Number 2, what degree measure is equivalent to 14 pi over 15 radians? So I'm going from radians to degrees. So I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi. So let's do that. 14 pi over 15 times 180 over pi. The pi's cancel, and in my calculator I'm going to type in 14 times 180 and then get that answer and divide by 15, and I get 168 degrees. Number 3, a wheel has a radius, my wheel, of 8 inches, and it rotates 32.2 radians per minute. So remember, radians is an angle. How far in inches? How far is length? In inches will a point on the rim of the wheel travel in 6 minutes? Well, if I'm doing 32.2 radians per minute for 6 minutes, when I multiply, let's see what that is, 32.2 times 6, I get 193.2 radians. Those minutes cancel. So I have 193.2 radians, but I want the length of how far I've traveled, not the radians. So this is arc length, which is the fraction of the circle times the circumference, which is the distance all the way around the circle. Fraction of the circle is 193.2 divided by 2 pi. Because it's in radians and a full circle is 2 pi, I'm doing 193.2 out of 2 pi times circumference, which is 2 times pi times the radius, which is 8. My 2 pi's cancel, and I take 193.2 times 8, and I get 1,545.6 inches. Next one. If the sine of theta is 3 square root of 8 over 13, and theta lies in the first quadrant, I love when theta lies in the first quadrant because everything in quadrant 1 is positive. What is the exact value, so no decimals, of cosine of theta? Which it's going to be positive because everything in quadrant 1 is positive. I'm going to use my Pythagorean identity theorem. I don't know cosine. And then I'm going to square this whole thing is 1. Alright, so cosine squared of theta equals 3 squared is, oh, I meant to put a plus sign there, 9. The square root of 8 squared is 8. 13 squared is 169. It's going to be 169 over 169. So I've got cosine squared of theta plus 72 over 169 equals 169 over 169. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 72 over 169 from both sides, which gives me the cosine squared of theta equals 97 over 169. Take the square root. Cosine of theta is, I don't know what the square root of 97 is. I know the square root of 169 is 13. And the square root of 97 does not have any perfect squares in it. I'm not even sure if 97 can be divided by anything. So that's my final answer. And it's positive. I don't need plus or minus because I only wanted a positive answer because I'm in quadrant 1. Right? Number 5. To the nearest thousandth of a radian, what angle measure is equivalent to 285 degrees? So now I'm going from degrees to radians. So I'm going to multiply by pi over 180. So I've got 285 times pi over 180. And because it's the nearest thousandth, which is 3 decimals, means I'm going to multiply this pi out. So on my calculator, I'm going to take 285 times pi, and then I'm going to divide by 180, and I get 4.974. Number 6. To the nearest thousandth, again, 3 decimals. What is the value of the tangent of 7 pi over 12? Since this is in radians, make sure your calculator is in radians. So I'm going to go into that mode, and I'm going to switch it back to radians. Right, so currently my calculator is in degrees, so I'm going to hit mode. And I'm going to arrow down to the word radian, and I'm going to hit enter. Now my calculator is back in radians, and I'm going to do tangent of 7 pi over 12. And I get negative 3.732. Negative 3.732. Okay. Continue on. Right. Number 12. If the cosine of theta is 3/5, and theta is between 0 and pi over 2, that tells me that that's in quadrant 1. And in quadrant 1, everything is positive. So the tangent, notice it's tangent, which is going to be sine over cosine, is positive. Okay, the answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Pythagorean identity theorem. Cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. 3/5 squared plus sine squared equals 1. 9/25 plus sine squared equals 25/25. When I subtract that 9/25 from both sides, I get that sine squared of theta equals 16/25. Take the square root. Sine of theta, I would normally say plus or minus since I put in the square root, but I only need positive answers because I'm in quadrant 1. So the sign is 4/5. Now, a mistake a lot of people will make, they will have done all this work, so they'll put 4/5 as the answer. But I didn't ask you for the sine, I asked you for the tangent. So tangent, which is sine over cosine, would be 4/5 over 3/5, which is 4/5 times the reciprocal of 3/5, 5/3. So the answer is 4/3. So the tangent is 4/3. Okay. What is the exact value of the tangent of 140 pi? Okay. I know that as I go around my unit circle that this is 0, this is pi over 2, this is pi, and then this is 2 pi, which makes this 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi, 7 pi, 8 pi, 9 pi, 10 pi, 11 pi, 12 pi. I could do this forever. And hopefully you notice that all my odd pi's are on the left, and all my even pi's are here. 1 pi, 2 pi is even, 3 pi is odd, 4 pi is even, 5 pi is odd, 6 pi is even. So 140 pi is going to be right here on this side of the unit circle, where the ordered pair is 1, 0. Tangent is sine over cosine. Remember, this is cosine and this is sine. So it's 0 over 1, which is 0. What is the exact value of the cosine of 11 pi over 6? I know that on my unit circle that pi over 6 is here. This is where my pi over 6 is. And then this is my 5 pi over 6. This is my 7 pi over 6. This is my 11 pi over 6. And I know my ordered pair here is the square root of 3 over 2, 1/2, which makes the same ordered pair on every one of these. Down here is the one I care about, though, where 11 pi over 6 is. It's still, the x-coordinate is still the square root of 3 over 2. The y-coordinate is negative 1/2. Cosine is the x-coordinate, which is the square root of 3 over 2. What is the exact value of the sine of negative 3 pi over 4? Again, I'm going to show you using a unit circle. I know my pi over 4 family, that's what I always called them. Like I call this the pi over 6 family. I'm going to show you my pi over 4 family. Pi over 4. This would then be the other part of the pi, the 3 pi over 4. Add a pi, 5 pi over 4. Add a pi, 7 pi over 4. Well, 3/4 pi is here, which means negative 3/4 pi is here. So this is what I'm looking at. I know my ordered pair is negative square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 2 over 2, because this is my negative quadrant, and therefore the sign, which is the y-coordinate, is negative the square root of 2 over 2.